Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have Annie Gaudreault with me. Hey, Annie.
Hello, hello, Kimberly.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. We're going to talk about some really cool things that everybody has certain things they're interested in. And you're an Iron Man, Iron Woman, and I'm very excited about that. So, but anyways, let me read your bio so people know who you are. So, Annie Gaudreault is a nutritionist and women's health coach. She founded VEEV Health and Wellness to support the needs of smart and successful women at midlife, giving them the confidence to do what they want to do with the energy that they need. An endurance athlete with 12 marathons and 3 Ironman triathlons under her belt, Annie lives what she preaches. A prior 25-plus year career as a brand consultant working with executives of Fortune 500 companies gave her a solid background to serve the wellness needs of those living busy lives. She is a regular speaker to the media, corporations, and lifestyle organizations on various topics of health. All right, I want to hear your story.
Well, it's always so weird to listen to the bio because the reality is that, I was just a very late bloomer. I had zero self-awareness growing up, and I was in an environment where it was a lot more about surviving than anything else. So it's not surprising that getting to know myself was a very, very long process. And I loved my first career and it was wonderful. And I just eventually realized, oh, there's actually something for me that is way bigger than this. And you know how people talk about vocations? I
Mhm.
used to think vocations were for people who were like maybe public servants, teachers, maybe people who are of spirituality, oriented aspects. I really didn't think it was for me, but eventually it came, and it was just like, wow. So here I am now.
Wonderful. Well, how did you go from being a brand expert to what you're doing?
Yeah, it was a very interesting career, but it was a career where when people, called and said jump, you jumped and you said, and how many little twirls would you like with that? Right. It was very intense. It was very stressful.
Mhm.
It was very deadline oriented. And through that time, it takes its toll on you in terms of stress levels. And a friend had said, I think that you should take up running. It would be good for your stress levels. And I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea because it takes no skills, which I didn't have. Right? I had zero sports talents. You can basically do it without equipment, although over the years I've bought a lot of cute little outfits. But you could really do it without much fuss. And I started running, and little by little, I added mileage and I added mileage. And I was like, this is really good for me. And then one day, an opportunity or divine intervention happened, and there was an invitation to join an information session about a marathon running group for women. And on the coldest day of January, it was like -30 Celsius. It was like a -100 Fahrenheit. And it was awful. And I thought, I'm going to go because I'm so intrigued by this. And that was the beginning of the journey of realizing that in me, this little like geeky, awkward person that did not think that she was very sporty was actually somebody who had a true love for health and wellness. So I did my first marathon, then I started coaching marathon, and one thing led to the other. So that was the beginning of the journey. Ended up thinking there's more here. So I gotta go to school. I gotta find a way to quit this other job and transition into this this new world. So I went and got my degree as a nutritionist.
Okay. So, all right. So that's how it started. And then why menopause? Is it because it came upon you and you're like, oh, I have to do something with this? That happens to all of us. When that thing hit me, I just was like, really?
Well, it's funny because it actually started with a fascination with healthy aging. And, I did not come from a background where people were very healthy, but suddenly me, this weirdo of the family, decided that I was going to be all about health and fitness. And, I came at it late. If you think about, when people start these things, and I just thought, oh my God, this is so interesting. And this is so fascinating. Why are some people that are in their 80s and all that, are so healthy? Now, at the same time, you're right. I was going through perimenopause, although I had no clue. And my friends, everybody around me, the wheels were starting to fall off from a health standpoint. Like, people were starting to have cholesterol issues, and a friend had cancer. It was a little bit of everything, autoimmune diseases. And I was experiencing, hot flashes. But I was like, well, I'm not even sure. My mom had passed a long time ago. I had no idea. And there's so little education. So I thought, wow, this is an opportunity. Women need help because there's so little out there. And think about it, this is years ago.
Mm, yeah. So, when you went to school as a nutritionist, did they give you any guidance at all on menopause, or was it just like basic nutrition? Very little.
Ridiculously little, just like doctors are getting ridiculously small levels of education when it comes to menopause. There was so much more emphasis on maternal health, which is also represented by, if you look at the money distributed for research for women, it's a lot more about fertility. Not that fertility is not important, of course, but every woman is going to go through menopause,
Mhm.
and it's not a disease, it's just a normal fact of life. Why is there no research, right?
Mhm.
So I have just beside me here, I have like shelves of books. I have read probably 100 books on menopause, and of course the science keep updating, so I have to upgrade my skills as time goes by. But yeah, it was all about like, okay, Annie, catch up and get your education now.
I was gonna say, did you crack the code? Because there's millions of women that would like to know. Or what
Yes.
are some things that you actually did yourself or helped people with that you said, like, this is something that if you do this, eat this, don't eat this, whatever, that helps most people?
Yeah. It's not just one thing. We want it all to be one thing. It's
Mhm.
not one thing. I'm so sorry.
I know.
However, like everything else though, it is no different than, if you ask an entrepreneur, how did you get successful? It's not one thing, right? They'll say, well, hard work, oh, sales, or marketing, good team, right? Many things. Managing your menopause journey is the same thing. And I always like to say there's like four big boulders, right? So the first one is nutrition. Definitely, we now need to be a lot more conscientious of how we eat, eliminating, for example, alcohol, which is really hard on us, especially in midlife,
Mhm.
more plant food, things like that. The second boulder is movement. You need to be active, and then you need to start changing. So I was a terrible example because I was like so cardio addicted, but now it's time to embrace shorter, more intense training. It's time to embrace, right, strength training.
Mhm.
So these are changes that I made. And then interestingly enough, the two other boulders are stress management and rest and rejuvenation. So we need to look at all four. It can't be just one.
Exactly. And, I'm all with you on movement. If we don't move we die. That's what I think. We don't the people who live the longest, they're the ones that are still breathing and moving. As long as you're breathing and
Absolutely.
moving, you're doing well.
Yes, and movement is a characteristics that we see in all of these, what we call blue zones around the world where people live the longest, but they don't just live the longest, is they have a great health span, right? So they have a great quality of life, none on multiple medications. They move every day, right? They go get their own groceries, they walk, they carry bags, a lot of natural organic movements.
Mhm. That is so true because there are communities where people are just, walking to the store or they're actually in walking distance. And I know where I live, if I had to walk to the store, it would take me all day, because I'm out in the country. But you can still put walks in. I mean, when the days I'm in the office, I'll go and walk at lunch at the
Mhm.
park. So
Yeah, absolutely, right? All these things matter, gardening matters. There's many ways to incorporate movement in our lives.
yeah. And then talk about sleep. So many of us are so driven. We're like, "Oh, I can only sleep 4 hours because I have so much work to do."
Yeah, yeah, that no longer works at menopause. That no longer works. And, it's interesting that you talk about that, like driven professional women, which is a lot of my practice. They have a hard time with this, right? But they start to realize that this is starting to cost them, right? It's like, oh, I need my sleep because otherwise the next day, man, I'm super cranky. I've got bad mental health or bad attitude, right? So they see that it's really hurting them. So sleep doesn't, does not, it's about mindset around the fact that this is not a nice to have, it's a must have. And this is going to help me be a, better mom, better partner, a better, lawyer, accountant, writer, whatever it is that you want to pursue. Right. And at the same time, what's a little bit challenging is that a lot of women, get woken up by those dreaded night sweats. And then they're like, oh my goodness, something's got to give here. Right. So that's something that we must address. And, it's not one size fits all. Everyone's journey will be different. Right? It's a bit like health in general, Kimberly, right? I find that sometimes there's these blanket statements, right? Everybody should be doing that. And the fact is that there's few things that we know that apply to everyone, but how we get there will be unique, right? In your journey. Some people in this world have a very different diet than us, and it works perfectly for their genetics and for their heritage and their location,
Mm,
right? So we have to be careful with all of this. Like everyone must eat this way and everyone must do that way, right? So keeping an open mind, but sleep is definitely universal. I mean, there's a reason they use sleep deprivation as in war as an act of torture,
mhm.
right? We go mad if we don't sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
As simple as that.
So when you're coaching women, what is your approach? You're like, where do you start to, kind of go on the layers and figure out where this woman needs, which direction she needs to go?
Yeah, in the private practice, that's what we do. We look at the individual, what is your background, where you're coming from, history, etc. What are your goals now, right? What is your symptoms? What are you going through? What are your priorities in terms of addressing some of the things that you're experiencing? And then we customize a plan for you that is based on these big four boulders that I talked about. And, like I just onboarded a new client this week and I was saying, I know that you're looking at this and you're like, wow, those are big four boulders. But the reality is that, we walk before we run here, right? We literally go one step, after the other to build and change some habits. But that's how we make changes over time.
Mhm. Yeah. Now back to my favorite thing, the Iron Man. Iron Man. So, you joined this club, you're doing marathons, but Ironman is a totally different world. I
Oh,
mean, people I
yes.
know who have done that, they have coaches, they have schedules of workout. So tell me about your journey with that and first of all, what made you decide I'm going to go for it the first time?
I know. And it's like it's a little bit of that. I had been running marathons for a few years, and I don't know if you know this, Kimberly, but in the world of Ironman, if you have completed that race, a lot of people get a tattoo of the Ironman logo on
Yes,
their
I have a
calves.
friend that has that. Yes.
Okay. So I found myself at a race one day, a marathon race, and this guy in front of me has one on his calves, and I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know, in that moment of courage, I just like ran up to him and I said, I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Annie. And I am just like in awe of you. You have obviously completed an Ironman. I just want to know what's that like?
Uh-huh.
And he tells me, oh, it's much easier than running a marathon. And I was like, okay, I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense
Mhm.
whatsoever. And he basically said, you're so well trained that when you actually complete the Ironman, your body is quite ready. Now he was partially right, but it was one of those. Um, I was looking for the next big thing, and because marathoning changed my life, marathoning, full stop, changed my life. As I said, I had been, a very late bloomer. Through running long distance, I discovered who I was. And I felt that there was an opportunity for me to challenge myself even further. So, but when I did sign up, I didn't tell anybody
Oh,
for, I think, 6 or 8 weeks, because I think I was a bit shell shocked. And I was going, Annie, what have you done? Because you have to pay up front, right? A
mhm.
year in advance, like it's $1,000. And then the coaching and everything else. And I was like, oh my God, what have you done? You are so crazy. This is very stupid. You're normally a much more smarter woman than this. Um, and um, and so it was a bit of a whoo,
Mhm.
but it's like everything else. You get a package, you get a coaching plan, right? And it's a bit like, thankfully, I had been used to the marathon plans where you don't worry about what's on week 24. All that matters is week 1. And then after week 1 is week 2, right? And I trusted the process. And I didn't, I wasn't alone. I also had a group that I met on weekends and I trained with them. So that was really, really good. And that was amazing. I've made friendships that are to this day so precious through it. And there is no question that it is a very, very challenging thing to do. Absolutely. The training alone, as they say, the training takes over your life. And I had a friend who used to say, the more training, the piles of laundry just kept on creeping up and up. I was like, yeah, because you're always sweating and changing outfits. And then, oh my goodness. Um, but these challenges, they they make you discover yourself.
Mhm.
And through Ironman, you have to swim, bike, run. I had been a runner, but I certainly would not consider myself a proficient swimmer. I certainly was not a great cyclist. So you have to problem solve, right? You have to overcome a lot of your mental blocks, right? Like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? Right. So
Mhm.
that journey is just so amazing, so amazing. And you realize one of the things that I really liked about it, and I have used to this day, is while everybody thinks, oh, you must be like a really good time manager, because I had a busy career. When I did my first Ironman, I still had my other business, and with the crazy clients and the deadlines and everything. But what I realized is that time is finite, right? There's no more than 24 hours per day. However, there was an opportunity for me to expand my energy.
Mm.
And I learned that process through Ironman, because the first 3 months of training were really, really hard on me. And I was losing excessive weight. And, people will be like, oh, that's great. It wasn't a good idea, because it's the last thing that you want. I was probably also losing a bit of muscle mass, which was really not healthy. And then I realized, oh, I'm managing my time, but I'm not managing my energy.
Mhm.
So I started to learn and discover that my capacity could expand. And that was a, game changer. It was so good. So all in all, the first Ironman is still my favorite experience of all my Ironman. It was amazing. It was in Austria. The sun was shining. I mean, I was like, oh my God,
Oh,
it
that's
could not
gorgeous.
be better than
Austria is
that.
gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. It's hilly.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's hilly, but it was truly a remarkable experience.
Wow. So talking about energy, I know when you're working with people, you're helping them with their energy. Now, not all of us want to be marathon runners, including me. I like to exercise, but running is my least favorite. So, how do you help women with their energy?
Yeah, we work on multiple levels. As I mentioned, when we look at menopause, we look at, how we eat. So I look at, what are you eating? When are you eating? How much are you eating? Right? The quality starts to matter a lot, right? A calorie is a calorie. No, 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 right? Like it doesn't work that way. So how are you nourishing yourself? Right? And then we look at your movement. And, I have a client who, everything on earth doesn't work, but she's a fantastic swimmer, and everything, water-based is her happy place, right? So we invest in her doing that. As we talked about, right? We look at, how are you resting? How are you rejuvenating, right? What is around you? So it's a real holistic approach, so that we can increase your energy and so that you have consistent energy, right? Like, we're recording this late in the day. My day started like, 12 hours a day, and I still have great energy.
Mm,
And those are the principles that, I teach my clients to fit their life. Not everyone is the same, and our preferences are, of course, different.
mhm,
But it's totally possible for everyone to master this.
mhm. And you mentioned something earlier, actually, in a couple of different ways, our relationships. So you talked about when you were training, you on the weekends you trained with other people, and that our relationships are very important. So how important is it when it comes to our actual health and well-being?
Mm. I think that this is one of the most underrated and misunderstood aspect of our health and of healthy aging, because who and what surrounds us, right? We take in the energy. So if you're aligned with people who share your values, right, who have some shared goals, right? Whether it's about a race, or whether it's about a project, or whether it's about positivity, mindset, right? Happiness, right? Who is around you, you are going to be picking up from them, right? They say that the biggest predictor of obesity is how many obese people are around you, right? Because of the habits, because of the actions, because of the belief system that sometimes is ingrained, right? All
Mhm.
of these things impact us. So those relationships are key. It also means that we have to, what I call, prune our life once in a while, right? We need to prune the tree of our life because there might be some people that are no longer aligned with us. And instead of believing in us and supporting us in our endeavors, in our goals and our new challenges and whatever we are dreaming of realizing and accomplish, they're just on a different vibe, on a different path. And you have to respectfully evaluate, maybe it's time to prune that relationship.
Mhm. That is true, because if you're around someone and your energy's being drained and you feel it, it's just not worth it as much as, sometimes they're family members. Sometimes they're
Yes.
they're close friends you've had for years, but if every time you're around them you feel drained, and then when you're away from them you don't feel drained, clue. There's a clue.
Exactly, exactly. No, and this is a tough one for people because we have this sense of false loyalty, right? Oh, but this person I've known since kindergarten and all that. And then you're like, yeah, but if you were honest with that person, you would actually tell them, every time I hang up the phone with you, I shake my head, right? Every time I spend time with you, I come home and I'm depleted, or, like, this is misaligned, right? That's a lack of integrity, right? And it's a lack of integrity with them.
Mhm.
Not honest with you, and you're not honest with them. I'm not talking about somebody having a bad day and you need to support them. That's not what I'm talking about, right? But sometimes it really is about that whole notion of, are we able to really feel that we are on that same wavelength, and we respectfully prune the tree of our life. We don't do it in a dismissive way, in a disrespectful way, right? We do it with love and we do it with compassion, but it's important to do. Otherwise, we stay stuck.
That makes sense. So, is there any other question I should have asked you about menopause or health that I haven't asked you that we really need to know?
I think we need to talk about one thing that I love about menopause and this whole notion of, why is menopause also a good thing?
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, because I think that, Kimberly, one of the things that people don't realize is that, we've got a little bit in North America, this mindset that, ooh, menopause, that means like decay and, aging. And we are in North America in a very ageist world, right? The mindset. But love to share, with your listeners, the fact that I believe that menopause is a fantastic time for a reset. It's a coming out party, if you want, for your, no nonsense years, where you get into your own and you use your voice, and you don't care as much about what your sister-in-law is going to say, or the neighbors, or, like, you're just coming into your own. Am I making sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I think that women get a total upgrade with menopause. And I did not come up with the expression. It was a fabulous doctor, American doctor, who wrote a book called The Upgrade, Dr. Luann Brizandine. And it's all about the opportunities that women have with midlife and with menopause. It doesn't mean that we don't have symptoms. That's not what I'm trying to, to just say, oh, it's all fabulous and rainbow and, and butterflies. But there is such a beautiful opportunity for us to come into to our own, and to start living on our own terms. And I don't know anything that is more exciting than that.
That's very exciting. That's very exciting. So, at this point, I'd like you to tell people where they can connect with you, and also what services you have going on right now or that you're offering.
Yes, so we have a menopause summit coming up July 23rd, 24th. It's a virtual event and it is free. And there's also a VIP options for anyone that is curious, whether you're like, I don't even know if I'm in perimenopause, right? Like you're just curious and you just want education, or you're full on in menopause. We're gonna have many speakers. It is going to be a great, great experience. I think I've given you the link for the show notes.
Mhm.
Um, and anybody that is just interested in having a conversation, I will offer a complimentary call, and just come to my website, which is VEEV.ca, VEEV.ca, and you'll see a button, contact me, and we'll be able to set something up. And I can give you some strategies so that, we can look at where you are in your journey so that you can see that there are so many options for you.
Beautiful. We all want options.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
So now a personal question. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
Oh my goodness. I think that I told you about being this late bloomer. I'm finally using my voice. I'm finally really, really happy with my practice and the women that I serve. And um, I'm a better partner. I'm a better friend, right? Because it impacts every area of my life. I'm more honest with myself. So I'm more honest with people. And I think that it brings more happiness all around.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for all your information and sharing your journey in the Ironman. So exciting.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that this was of value to the listeners. And you're doing such beautiful work in the world.
Well, thank you. So here's the last question. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Mm. So, listening to that inner voice. I was very good at ignoring and repressing that little inner voice. And I know that everybody has that voice. And that's really important because so many of our problems would be solved a lot sooner if we just listen to that voice, right? We have a lot of wisdom. The other one we touched on before, Kimberly, and it's about surrounding yourself with people that have shared values,
Mhm.
and that have good integrity, and that will tell you when they feel that something is off, or that you need to, like, you seem to be a little bit off track, right? People that truly care about you. And then the last one is one of my personal favorites, is I really know the power of challenging yourselves. Okay? If it's write that book, visit a new country that on your own, right? Challenge yourself to do something that is in you, but you might be a little bit afraid. But with serious planning, it's amazing what's on the other side of those challenges.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Annie.
So good to be here, and it's wonderful to talk about this. And I'm grateful for the conversation.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.